All right, hello and welcome to the Investing from the 920 podcast starring Josh Jansen. In the past few weeks, I was fortunate enough to connect with Paul Gray from Ironhold Capital on LinkedIn. We exchanged some contact information. I am very pleased to announce that the CIO, Siddharth Singhai of Ironhold Capital, has agreed to join me today on this special. Siddharth, welcome to the Investing from the 920 podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a wonderful show.
Thank you. So starting with your background, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and Ironhold Capital?
Sure. I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Ironhold Capital. And I started out, I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering from India. Then I moved to New York and I pursued my master's here from Gabelli School of Business, Fordham University. And after that, I got together with Paul Gray, and we decided to start our own investment firm in New York City, and it's called Ironhold Capital. And primarily, we invest both in U.S. and Indian markets, and that's about us.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. So, what made you come from India over to New York?
Well, I think there were a couple of things. So, I wanted to start my hedge fund in India itself, but regulations are such that you need to have professional degree certifications required to, really get it going there.
Sure.
And so I think that was the primary reason. And this was a great opportunity. So it's like a year-long course, and it's in New York City, and so yeah, I thought it'd be a good fit.
Cool. What made you choose the university that you went to?
Well, I think Fordham really has a very strong value investing focus, and the fact that it's in New York, and also the fact that you also get other benefits from a visa standpoint, more or less.
Sure.
Yeah, I think those all put together.
Perfect. So, what really made you want to start your own investment company, and with Paul specifically?
So I've been investing a long time, over a decade now. I started out with real estate in India, and we, had similar interests as far as value investing was concerned. He was also from the same, you can say, he had the same mindset about the market. And I thought we had complementary skill sets, so it made sense for us to, get started. We had enough experience professionally, and so we had common goals, basically.
Cool. So, what drew you into the specific value investing that you two do?
I think if you look at all the other things out there, macro predictions and technical analysis and quantitative things, to me, they fundamentally don't make a lot of sense just from an economics standpoint. And I love
Sure.
economics. And with value investing, you can sort of rationally justify what happened, right? With markets in the short run are irrational. Some people are able to benefit from that, but I think for the vast majority of people, it's not possible for them to make money in the short run trading, and it's just not something I was comfortable with. There was no, fundamental analysis underlying that, in my view. So
Sure.
I just drifted apart from that.
All right, thank you. So, with COVID and the COVID pandemic, there seems to be a current resurgence in the United States. Do you see the the auto industry, which we're going to be covering a little later, how do you see that being affected from COVID?
Um, it's gonna be pretty bad, I would say, mainly because it's a fixed cost heavy business. You have to, and the other thing is the supply chains are, auto car dealerships. So they've been hit badly. But it's really the drop in demand, right? People are not gonna go uh, buy new cars in a economy like this. And when you add to the fact that you have to, there's a lot of PP&E in the auto industry that needs a lot of maintenance, regardless of whether you produce cars or not. Um, so if you take all those things and you know add to the fact that they do have a lot of debt, some of these automakers, um, it, it could be difficult for them, given if we have for another 6 months conditions similar to the ones that we have right now, you could see a lot of problems in that sector.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So moving on to more of the electric vehicle market, that seems to have been getting just a lot of attention lately. Do you see more of the big names like GM and Ford moving towards electric vehicles in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, electric vehicles could have been a thing 30 years ago. The key technology that made it happen, like you see the penetration of it, the high penetration rates that exist right now, are because of the battery technology, right? Um, and I think we're at a point where all the major automakers will have that technology over the next 2 3 years. They already are coming out with the iterations of electric vehicles, and they're getting better, exponentially better. So yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that you will have a lot of competition in that space.
Sure. Where do you see the sector progressing into the next 5 to 10, 15 years even out?
Um, so 10 years out is really hard to say in any sector. You know, um, electric cars are going to be more commonplace. That we do know. So they will have a bigger share of the traditional car market, right? Um, and IC engines are going to be eventually phased out. How quickly will that happen is going to be hard for us to predict. Um, I do think it's a big market, but it's a very slow growing market, right? It grows at about
Hmm.
1 or 2% at best. So there's no
Yep.
volume growth. So players like Tesla or any upcoming player will have to capture market share from the incumbents, and there are huge incumbents and number of them in this industry. GM, Chrysler, and Ford in the US, and you got Volkswagen and Toyota internationally. So they will come out with electric cars. It's very thin margin business. It's not growing. There's not a lot of volume growth. So you might see a little bit of a, you know, the exact, who will have what kind of market share. I think that you cannot really say,
Sure.
but I think it's going to be competitive. No doubt about that.
Absolutely. So the reason why I gave that kind of timeline is that California and a couple other states are implementing laws that are going to be ending the sales of gas-powered vehicles by uh, about 2035. So do you see more states moving toward this rule with more government intervention, or do you just see that the people will move towards electric vehicles?
Well, I do agree with that because you will eventually face the IC engine cars out, mainly because just the number of mechanical components in electric cars are less compared to mechanical IC engine car. And so it is cheaper to make. it does have better battery technology, better throttle torque, uh, torque, reaction at least.
Hmm.
So it is just as fun to drive. They are just as reliable, and the only problem that you do see right now are the charging stations, and they are going to be there eventually. So yeah, but 2035, I mean, I don't know who's going to have, who's going to be the winner or not, but
Sure.
most certainly electric cars are going to be more commonplace.
Okay.
Mhm.
So from that, and moving to a more of an international investment standpoint, are there any automakers outside of the US that you could see gaining a hold in the not only the US but just the world electric vehicle market?
Um, I personally don't see many because um, you have to have a moat, right?
Hmm.
You have to have some sort of competitive advantage, and even if you have to, have to capture market share from the incumbents, you need something. Um, Either you have to do it cheaper than they can do it, which is going to be difficult given their
Hmm.
scale, right? But cheap economies of scale already, the big players, or you'll have to do it much better than them, and you'll have to keep up with the speed of innovation, which is more it's sort of where Tesla is going with their strategy.
Sure.
So uh, you don't have patent protection, you don't really have any exclusive technology that anyone can enjoy, and you don't have a uh, rapidly growing market either. So I think it's going to be very difficult for the. There are some barriers to entry, you know,
Oh
and
yeah.
Tesla almost went bankrupt, and they had, you know, backing of a number of investors because of Elon Musk and his track record of
Hmm.
entrepreneurship. So they were losing a lot of money. Now they're in a place where they just sort of seem to be breaking even. So it's a
Yeah,
scale business,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, they just reported their fifth straight quarter of positive earnings.
absolutely. And
Do you think they can stick with that, or do you see them fizzling off a little bit?
I think Tesla is in a better position than people give it credit for because their cars are at least a couple of years ahead of their competition still, and it is a scale business, like I mentioned. And so, at some point in time, and we've seen over the last year or so, there the fixed cost nature of the business. Um, you have enough revenues to sort of take care of those fixed costs now, and they were losing money because of those. I think you will see them have positive earnings in the future as well as the scale. They will have to capture market share, but at least for the next 5 to 7 years, I think they have some you know room to
Sure,
grow into.
absolutely. They also announced, I think 2 weeks ago, that they were able to lower the price of their SUV model while also looking to add a few more models coming up in the next year or two. Do you think
Yeah,
that
I mean,
poses more of
mhm.
an more expenses or more profitability?
So I think the SUV market is a little less competitive compared to the hatchback and the sedan market. Slightly less. Um, you have slightly better margins in that sector. Um, so I think overall, I think it's going to be profitable, obviously. But yes, we'll have to see what the reaction is because the other automakers are going to come out with their stuff over the next couple of years.
Sure.
And that's going to be pretty good too, I think.
Okay. All right. So moving on to General Motors, they just released their electric Hummer pickup truck. Do you think that they're trying to revive a fad from a couple years ago and hoping it sticks, or do you think that the Hummer will now be here to stay?
Um, That's just that's hard to predict because it's consumer preference, and it changes all the time.
Sure,
So I think that there's no easy way to answer that.
sure.
We'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with the Hummer pickup truck, it boasts of a 350-mile battery range and some Jeep Wrangler features with being able to remove some of the top roof glass panels to make it open up and other stuff like that. Do you think that is going to set them apart a little bit from the competition, or do you think that's just going a little too far?
Um, no, I mean the thing is, anything they can do, the competition can do as well.
Hmm.
They don't have any proprietary technology. These are all great features, obviously, but they will be
Hmm.
replicated. You know, and so it's not going to help them a lot. Maybe in the short run, sure, but moment competition comes out with the same features, the playing field is level again.
Okay.
Right. Mhm.
Do you see Jeep moving towards electric Jeep Wranglers or other vehicles like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, they should be because Tesla's going to come out with they'll have a player in every category.
Hmm.
SUVs, sedans, luxury, and then sports, and also hatchback. So that's another sector. I mean, there's going to be competition eventually,
Sure.
and yeah, so they should be, I think.
Okay. So with Tesla's Cybertruck, do you think that they're trying to bring a stylish form of a pickup truck to a market where people who typically drive pickup trucks are not looking for style but for utility?
Yes, I mean the thing is, it does have function. It's not like the only concern is price, but it's not going to be. I mean, if you can buy the Tesla truck for about the same as you can buy the other ones, I think people will be inclined to go with Tesla. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I think the looks are again very subjective. Some people might not be particularly. So I don't think it's going to be a big part of it, to be honest.
Okay. They had a video right when the Cybertruck came out of the Cybertruck outpulling a Ford F-150. And I just found that to be extremely interesting because there was a lot of talk about how Tesla's Cybertruck just isn't going to have as much power or torque or whatever as a regular pickup truck. And they were able to show not only that they're pulling the F 150, but it can outperform other vehicles as well. Um, they also had a video of it racing a Porsche 911, I believe, and its 0 to 60 was faster than that of the 911.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it. Um, it's impressive. It definitely they do have the technological advantage, compared to their peers. My only concern is, can they sustain it, right? If GM comes out with their truck, um, which is roughly as good as a Tesla, they
Hmm.
already have the networks, dealerships here, and after service repairs and all that stuff. So it will make Tesla a lot less attractive. So Tesla is really in a game of innovation, right? Mr.
Hmm.
Musk does not believe in competitive advantages or moats. He
Yep.
said it himself. And so his business strategy is rapid innovation, being at least year to a couple of years ahead of the competition. And that could work. I mean, it's just hard to sustain that, right?
Yep. Okay. So, let's see. So with Ford, they seem to be kind of slacking a little bit on the pickup or the electric pickup industry. I saw that they released the Mustang Mach-E, which is a electric SUV to compete with the Tesla. I think it's the Model X, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think the Mustang, with its title of Mustang, can compete with the Tesla SUV?
Well, with Ford, I mean, they have a lot of cash, and they have not, invested a lot back into their own business, unfortunately. And I think they're the weakest of the big three or big four now. And so I do not have a lot of. I'm personally not very optimistic about Ford. You know, it's just
Sure.
they just haven't been innovating, and it's
Hmm.
been slagging off for decades now. So could they dominate one niche category and maybe start building from there? Absolutely. I think they're trying to do that, moving towards the bigger, weaker market, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I don't see them. The margins aren't any better than their competitors. In fact, they're much worse, and they do have a lot of cash. So to me, it's I think they're betting on one dominating one niche. I think that could be a good strategy. You know,
Sure.
even the overall market.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So Tesla, with its Cybertruck, it mentioned that its price was anywhere from, I believe, 60,000 to 80,000, depending on what kind of packages you are looking to buy. But Hummer said that its electric pickup truck is nearly double that at $112,000. Do you think that's going to hurt them at the start?
Um, it could. I mean, I would say it would because it's no longer the brand that it used to be. Um, and Tesla is a brand now, so it could. I would think it should.
Okay. Yeah, because Hummers, when it was as popular as it was, its big model was big, bulky, and, you know,
Hmm.
look at me. Do you think it's going to look to change that image with its new electric Hummer, or do you think they're going to try and maintain that with its um, maintain it with its newfound brand?
I think they're gonna keep the looks, um, but yeah, will they go electric or not? I think they might transition a little bit later because it's also they want to keep the rugged mechanical systems in place. I think they have the customers seem to have affinity for that.
Sure.
Hmm.
Okay. So some other style electric vehicle companies that have been coming to market have been coming through the special purpose acquisition companies. Um, just to name a few is Fisker, which is actually being voted on to merge tomorrow with Spartan Acquisition Energy Company, and Nikola, which merged back in May. With Nikola, they're under investigation more with the SEC with fraud claims, and because they said they had a prototype with a hydrogen powered battery, and it actually signed a deal with GM where GM was going to get an 11% stake in Nikola's company, while they also would be then providing Nikola with the engineering support and the parts to make their pickup truck. Do you see this as a now risky investment for GM, as it could possibly hurt them with the 11% stake in Nikola, or do you see this as a potentially rewarding investment?
Well, I personally have not looked into Nicola. So I'll have
Hmm.
to do the work there to really give you anything concrete.
Sure.
They have made the right bet, in my view, in terms of the decision to acquire companies rather than try and innovate themselves.
Hmm.
So I think that that's a good move. Whether
Okay.
Nicola is specifically a good move or not, I think that, yeah, I'll have to look into.
Sure. So moving on to the final part of this podcast, Rolls-Royce said that their orders have resumed to a more or less back to normal order numbers. Do you think this is like a correlation for the luxury car sales and non-luxury new car sales, as in how the used car market has been booming compared to the new car market has been struggling?
Um, well, we haven't seen demand pick up that much. I mean, there's been an uptick over the last 3 to 4 months, but to say that we've made a recovery, I think we're still some, you know, the unemployment rate is still pretty high, and
Sure.
we're not sure if we're out of the recession yet or not. So
Yeah.
I think it's at best a short-term aberration, I would say. And it's not correlated that much because Rolls Royce's customers are really, they have like 5,000 customers
Yeah.
compared to hundreds of thousands for other automakers. And yeah, I mean, they do have the firepower. And so I don't think we can draw that correlation there.
Sure. So with a bunch of the used cars vehicle stocks like Carvana, which has gone through the roof since March when it hit its lows of I think $38 and its highs either last month at 220. Why do you think the used vehicle market has been doing so well during the pandemic?
I think obviously people don't have the money to, either buy outright or even, pay up for a lease for a new car.
Absolutely.
And so I think this was to be expected because of that. Um, but I think it's more like a temporary upsurge at best. I don't think this is
Okay.
going to continue.
Okay. Thank you. Um, So are there any other markets you're more bullish or bearish on looking forward into the unforeseeable future?
Um, the semiconductor industry is really good. I think
Okay.
it's going to a cyclical downturn right now. It's about to, demand's about to pick up again. And so you can pick up a lot of stocks for a reasonable discount there.
Okay.
Apart from that, I would say, so we do look at India as well. So asset management industry in India, I think very low penetration rates, huge demand, pent-up
Absolutely.
demand, and you know, it's growing at about 10-15%. So that's another great place to look at, I would say.
Sure. What is the top market for India?
Could you repeat that?
What is like the main or top or leading market right now in India?
Well, in terms of, I think tech is probably the biggest. Obviously, we rely on uh, U.S. companies or
Hmm.
even international companies setting up their tech shops in India, and it's the wage differential is beneficial to them, and I think
Sure.
that supports pretty much uh, you know 60-70% of the engineers in India. So I think
Wow.
that has become over the last 2 decades the biggest market as such.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
As the last two questions are, what advice would you give other college students like me or finance majors for their future?
Um, well, I would say it depends. I think I would personally suggest that you try out everything, right? Try and
Mhm.
figure out where your interests are aligned, because you know all all fields in the world are competitive. especially in
Yeah.
finance. And you don't want to be playing a game that you cannot win. So you have
Mhm.
to know where you are interest, where your interest lies, and where you also have um, your skill set. Like you want to build out your skill set. You already are good at something. You're interested. You want to pursue that. And it's a game that
Sure.
you can win. I would suggest against, following the herd, um, getting influenced by social proof, and just all funneling down to investment banking. I think there are a number of uh, fields out there in finance where you can do really well for yourself. So I
Thank you.
guess try a little bit of everything outside.
Thank you. All right, and the final question is, if my listeners would like to check further into Ironhold Capital or wish to invest with you guys, how would they be able to do so?
Sure. So you can reach out to us through our website,
Okay.
arnoldcapital.com. And fill out a form. We'll get back to you. People can also reach out to us on LinkedIn, right? We're
Okay.
active there. You can reach out to me personally or Paul or Arnold Capital page. Right? And they can also email us at pgray@arnoldcapital.com.
All right. Thank you. Well, that concludes this episode of the Investing from the 9 to 0 podcast. I'd like to thank you for joining us today and for your time and insight.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you guys next time.